Hey, if you're watching this, you probably just finished my very first short film, Quantum. So thank you so much for watching and taking the time. I'm going to take some time to answer some questions that you might have asked in the comments or answer questions that I've gotten on the film festival circuit. All right, here we go. The most common question that I get with Quantum is, who are those kids and where did you find them? The kids are Noah Johnston and Helena James. First off, Noah Johnston was not a rookie. He was a voice on the Peanuts movie. He was a voice on Monsters University.
Oh, Mike Wazowski.
Thanks, Joe. Good luck finishing your crossword puzzle.
Little dude at the time, well, he was little at the time. Little dude at the time was crushing it. We were very lucky to have him on the film because he had gone from doing voices in animated films to doing a live action short film. Helena James was the wild card. Yeah, we did not know what we were going to get with Helena James. We didn't know what we were going to get with that role. Helena's role was the hardest part to cast. I knew we had to build the entire film around her because she's our protagonist throughout the film. So finding the right girl to play that character was the most important thing. Everyone was built around her. So Helena James was the second person that we saw in the casting process, literally number 2. I was blown away. I was blown away. Literally, when she finished her first read, I gave her one adjustment. She crushed it on the next read. She walked out of the room, and I just looked around and I said, we found her. If anyone's better than her, we're killing it. But that's her. That's who I've envisioned. So Helena James was our choice from the jump, and Noah Johnston fit perfectly with her. Allison Twardziak from AMT Casting did us a huge favor and cast our humble little short film. Allison has tons of credits, tons of films that have been all over the film festival circuit, have won all sorts of awards, but she took a chance and took her time to cast our film. Allison focused on the 2 kids. I personally cast the adults. Allison sent us amazing options for the kids. By the end of day 1, I knew who the kids were going to be. Allison Twardziak is the bomb. Quantum was inspired by losing my father to a brain tumor when I was in high school and losing my brother to mental health. So I took little bits of both of those stories and kind of dreamed up this scenario and this story. But the actual script took me about 2 days to write. Once I had the beginning, middle, and end worked out in my mind and it was very briefly outlined, I just powered through and wrote it in 2 nights. I wrote it between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. both nights. The first night was just getting it out and the second night was just refining it. So I wrote it in about, I'll say 2 days. It was 10 pages. 10 pages in 2 days. Not bad. It took us 2 days to film Quantum. We shot it over a weekend in Princeton, New Jersey, across the street from where I grew up. And we shot it in, just 2 full days. And then we had 1 half day of pickups. Darren Morsey scored the film. That was one of my favorite parts of making this film because music inspires what I write. I use instrumentals and playlists of instrumentals to work to when I write scripts. And so I had really, really specific music for Quantum, and when I sat down with Darren, I basically just played through what I'd had and described what I was looking for emotionally, and then he just came back to me with basically what you saw. I had very, very, very minor tweaks to give him, but Darren Morsey, he's a genius. My favorite memory on set, that's a tough one. My favorite memory on set is when they sang Happy Birthday to me on day 1 of filming. I basically used my birthday as a way to guilt people into coming and helping. I just told them I'm shooting a short film and it's my birthday and I'm not having a birthday party and this is the closest thing to a birthday party, so you should just come to my birthday party. Do you want to work on my film? AKA, do you want to come to my birthday party? And it worked. I got some incredibly talented people to come and hang out. And I really wasn't expecting anyone to do anything for my birthday because we were so busy with time. But someone got a cake during our lunch break. They snuck down to the basement where we were having our meals and they surprised me with happy birthday. And I was blown away and I was really, really touched. And they gave me one of our scripts that everyone signed and wrote me notes on as a card. It was awesome. probably the best birthday I've ever had. The most challenging thing about this production was dealing with and managing time. It's probably the most common response from a filmmaker. But when you're working with kids, you have to work around child labor laws. And Helena and Noah could only work a certain amount of hours, which I believe was 6 hours. So it was a constant struggle to basically get all of their shots in within that time. And also they had such heavy lifting emotionally as actors that having a 6-hour window is tough enough if you're working with seasoned pros. But when you're doing it with kids who might not have done it before or not done often, it's so incredibly challenging. But we were really, really lucky that both of these kids were just absolutely phenomenal to work with. And we worked around that by rehearsing, which is not something you get to do that often with a film. But we took a lot of time with Noah and Helena to rehearse separately so that by the time that we got to set, we knew what we were doing and we knew how to get there. My shadiest secret about filming. Okay. This has to do with my biggest challenge, which was time. But we ran out of time. It got to the point where I was trying to get the ending from Helena where she delivers that last line and she was just not having it. She was out of gas. She'd been working all day. She'd gone to the deep, dark, emotional places and she'd crushed it. And, she was just a kid and she was tired and it was late. And I walked away after we had to cut her because we ran out of time. And I remember breaking down to my friend Christian Campbell, who played the doctor. And I was like, oh, I don't think we have an ending. We're done. We're cooked. We don't have an ending. We're screwed. And he said, it'll be fine. You'll figure it out. And I was like, what do you mean we'll figure it out? I can't afford to hire everyone to come back down here and shoot again for another day. And he said, no. This happens to filmmakers all the time. You're going to work around it. You'll figure it out. So essentially, there are 2 shots in the movie that we did not shoot during the 2 days of principal photography. Can you figure those shots out? I don't know. You tell me. But there's 2 full shots in the movie that were not filmed during principal photography. If you can call those shots out and tell me what they are, I will be very impressed. I will shout you out if you can call me out on what 2 shots they were, but you have to get them both. You can't just get one. You got to get them both. Something devious I pulled out on set. Okay, I got one. This is actually pretty devious. The scene where Helena is standing at the foot of Noah's bed delivering that very emotional speech before she runs downstairs. There's a moment where she turns to her left and she looks at her family's photo, and you see her mother and her late father in the picture. The devious thing I did was that I photoshopped her actual father into that photo. So in that moment, when she turned to look at her family's photo while talking about her dad, she actually saw a picture of her dad. And man, that moment really, it gets me. It gets me every time. Every time I see Helena doing that scene and Noah doing that scene, it gets me emotional. But that moment where she looks at the picture, it hits differently because it's as real and as raw as it gets, I think. Who edited Quantum? That's a great question. The editor of Quantum was my boy Dingus. Thank you, Dingus. A little story about Dingus. Dingus was in college when he edited this film. I'm gonna tell you a little story. After we finished principal photography and we did the rough cut, I sent out the footage to a totally separate editor in LA who is a pro. He's worked on multiple films, and I had him do a blind cut. And I basically just let him cut the film with the script, no input, and he sent me back a cut. And you do this to basically see what someone else's vision would be with your story and your footage. And I had worked on a rough cut with Andrew, and I took both those cuts and I tested it with multiple people. And I knew that I hit gold when every person that I showed it to preferred Andrew's cut to the other professionals. Like, Andrew was like 19 years old at the time. It was insane. But he's got the instincts and he's got the speed, which is crazy. He's faster than any other editor I've ever worked with. All those other questions that I've answered previously, he's editing them right now in the same room. He's insane. Someone asked me why I made this film. I wanted to tell the story to give audience members a message of hope. I've had my challenges throughout life, and I wanted to give anyone who's having some of those challenges, who might ever feel like the world is crumbling around them, like nothing can get better, I just wanted to remind them that anything is possible. Because I really believe that. No matter how tough it gets, no matter how dire the circumstances might be, everything is possible. And it starts with hope. You just got to have some hope. Last thing I got to say is thank you so much to the cast, the crew, and the people that funded this film. It was one of the best experiences of my life, and there are too many people to actually thank, but my producer, Joe Mullen, was the first person that said, we have to make this film, Ryan, let's do it. Our DP, Richard Patterson, was the first department head who just said, yes, he's in. And there were so many people that gave their time to spend that weekend to make that film, and it just means the world to me. My old neighbors, Jim and Colleen, they just gave us their entire house and let us run amok because they were going to sell the house in a few months anyway, that they just said, yeah, go ahead, Ryan, make a movie. They just gave us their house to use. It was insane. James Garland was a huge inspiration for the character Quark. People have questioned, like, what kind of 13-year-old boy could do those kinds of equations? James Garland, when he was like 8 or 9 years old, basically knew that he wanted to be an astrophysicist back then. He was our science consultant on this film and gave me the equations that I read on the blackboard, because they're some of the few equations we have that actually can explain time travel. So James Garland, thank you for inspiring the character. Huge thanks to the parents of Helena and Noah. Oh my God, I so appreciate you taking the time and letting us work with your children. You went above and beyond. So thank you to everybody who helped. I hope you enjoyed the film, because for me, it was one of the most wonderful and important things I've ever done in my life. Thank you again for watching, and thank you if you helped make this movie.